There's a place on Earth where your body ages faster than anywhere else, where time itself seems to betray you, and scientists are only now beginning to understand why people who live there are facing a health crisis unlike anything we've ever seen. What if I told you that simply living in this location could be stealing years from your life without you even knowing it? Stay with me, because what's happening there could change everything we thought we knew about aging, and the truth is far more disturbing than you might imagine. Picture this: a land surrounded by ice, darkness that lasts for months, and temperatures so brutal they can freeze exposed skin in minutes. But it's not the cold that's killing people faster here. It's something invisible, something that's been lurking in the shadows of one of the most remote civilizations on the planet. We're talking about Greenland, the world's largest island, home to around 56,000 people, most of whom are Inuit indigenous communities living in scattered settlements along the frozen coastline. And right now, something terrifying is happening to them. The people of Greenland are aging at an accelerated rate compared to almost anywhere else in the developed world. Their life expectancy is a shocking 71 years, nearly a full decade less than neighboring Denmark, the country that actually governs Greenland. Think about that for a second. 10 years. That's 10 birthdays, 10 Christmares, 10 summers you'll never see. But here's where it gets really disturbing. It's not just that they're dying younger. They're experiencing age-related diseases much earlier in life. Heart attacks in their 40s, strokes in their 50s, diabetes rates that are absolutely skyrocketing. It's as if their biological clocks are running on fast forward. And the question everyone's asking is, why? Now, you might be thinking it's the extreme environment, the isolation, or maybe just bad luck. But the reality is far more complex and infinitely more tragic. What's happening in Greenland is the result of a perfect storm of factors that have converged to create what researchers are calling a public health catastrophe. And the most heartbreaking part? Many of these factors were completely preventable. Let's start with something that sounds almost too simple to be true: diet. For thousands of years, the Inuit people thrived on a traditional diet rich in whale blubber, seal meat, fish, and other marine animals. This was of old age anymore. They're showing up in people in their 30s and 40s, robbing them of the prime years of their lives. The metabolic shock of this dietary transition cannot be overstated. The Inuit genome evolved over thousands of years to process a high-fat, high-protein diet with minimal carbohydrates. When you suddenly flood that system with refined sugars, processed carbohydrates, and inflammatory seed oils, the body simply doesn't know how to cope. Insulin resistance develops rapidly. Blood pressure skyrockets. Cholesterol levels become dangerously imbalanced. And all of this contributes to accelerated cellular aging, where the body's repair mechanisms can't keep up with the damage being inflicted. But wait, because the dietary shift is only part of the story, and what comes next will make you understand just how deeply broken this situation really is. Greenland has one of the highest suicide rates in the entire world. We're talking about roughly 80 suicides per 100,000 people annually, which is more than 4 times the global average. In some years, the numbers have been even worse, reaching over 100 per 100,000 in certain communities. Let that sink in. In some small communities, everyone knows someone who took their own life. Everyone has been touched by this tragedy. The psychological toll of this cannot be overstated, and it's aging people in ways that go far beyond the physical. Why is this happening? The answer lies in a phenomenon called historical trauma and cultural displacement. For generations, particularly during the 1950s and 60s, Greenlandic children were taken from their families and placed in Danish boarding schools where they were forbidden from speaking their native language or practicing their culture. This systematic erasure of identity created deep psychological scars that continue to echo through families today. These children, who grew up disconnected from their roots, often struggled to parent their own children, creating intergenerational cycles of trauma, abuse, and dysfunction. Add to this the isolation of living in tiny settlements where winter darkness lasts for months, where opportunities are limited, where unemployment is high, and where alcohol abuse has become rampant as a coping mechanism, and you have a mental health crisis that's literally shortening lives. The darkness itself plays a role that's hard for outsiders to comprehend. Imagine living through months where the sun barely rises above the horizon, where your days are spent in twilight or complete darkness. Seasonal affective disorder affects a huge percentage of the population, contributing to depression, lethargy, and hopelessness. And when you're already dealing with economic hardship, cultural loss, and social problems, that darkness can feel absolutely suffocating. Chronic stress, depression, and trauma don't just affect your mind. They age your body at a cellular level. Studies have shown that people living under constant psychological stress have shorter telomeres, the protective caps on the ends of our chromosomes that are markers of biological aging. Every time a cell divides, these telomeres get a little shorter, and when they become too short, the cell can no longer divide and become senescent or dies. Chronic stress accelerates this process dramatically. In other words, the mental anguish that so many Greenlanders experience is physically accelerating how fast their bodies break down. The stress hormones cortisol and adrenaline that flood the body during times of psychological trauma cause inflammation, suppress the immune system, and damage blood vessels. Over time, this creates a body that's biologically much older than its chronological age. And here's something that will shock you. Access to healthcare in Greenland is extremely limited. Imagine living in a settlement of just a few hundred people with no road connections to anywhere else. The only way in or out is by boat or helicopter, and during the brutal winter months, even that can be impossible for weeks at a time. There are only a handful of hospitals in the entire country, all located in the larger towns. If you have a medical emergency, if you need specialized care, if you need surgery, you might have to be airlifted to Nuuk, the capital, or even flown all the way to Denmark, which is thousands of miles away. For many people, especially the elderly or those with chronic conditions, getting the care they need is a logistical nightmare. The healthcare infrastructure simply isn't equipped to handle the growing burden of chronic disease. There aren't enough doctors, nurses, or specialists. Medical equipment is often outdated or unavailable. Preventive care free radicals damage cells, proteins, and DNA. They disrupt hormones, interfere with cellular signaling, and accelerate the aging process at the most fundamental level. Studies have found that some Greenlanders have mercury levels in their blood that are 10 times higher than what's considered safe by international health standards. Pregnant women and children are particularly vulnerable, as these toxins can cross the placental barrier and affect fetal development, leading to developmental delays and lifelong health problems. Imagine carrying poison in your body every single day, poison that's quietly destroying you from the inside out, and there's almost nothing you can do about it because it's embedded in the very food that sustained your ancestors for millennia. The traditional foods that once made the Inuits so healthy have now become a source of contamination, creating a tragic paradox where cultural preservation conflicts with physical health. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn, because there's one more factor we haven't talked about yet, and it might be the most devastating of all: alcohol. Greenland has one of the highest rates of alcohol consumption per capita in the world, and the social consequences are catastrophic. Alcohol abuse is linked to domestic violence, which affects a horrifying percentage of families. It's linked to accidents, drownings, and violent deaths. And it's linked to a whole cascade of health problems, including liver disease, pancreatitis, heart disease, stroke, and multiple types of cancer. But it's also a direct accelerant of aging. Chronic alcohol use damages nearly every organ system in your body, promotes systemic inflammation, impairs your immune system, disrupts sleep patterns, depletes essential nutrients, and shortens your lifespan dramatically. The liver, which has to process all the alcohol consumed, becomes scarred and dysfunctional through a condition called cirrhosis. The brain shrinks, with alcohol literally killing neurons and disrupting the delicate balance of neurotransmitters. The heart muscle weakens, blood vessels become damaged and prone to clots. And at the cellular level, alcohol creates oxidative stress and DNA damage that accelerates the biological aging process. Studies have shown that chronic heavy drinkers can have biological ages that are 10 to 15 years older than chronological ages. Why is alcohol such a problem in Greenland? It's a complex mix of factors rooted in historical trauma, cultural disruption, and socioeconomic challenges. The forced assimilation policies of the mid-20th century destroyed traditional social structures and coping mechanisms. Limited economic opportunities in many communities leave people feeling hopeless and without purpose. The long, dark winters contribute to depression and isolation. And alcohol has become a normalized way of dealing with pain, both physical and emotional. In many communities, heavy drinking has become woven into the social fabric in ways that make it incredibly difficult to address. There's stigma around seeking help, limited access to addiction treatment services, and few alternative recreational or social activities. The result is a vicious cycle where alcohol abuse leads to health problems and social dysfunction, which leads to more stress and trauma, which leads to more alcohol abuse. And this cycle is literally stealing years from people's lives, aging them faster than should be possible, and destroying families and communities in the process. So what does all of this mean? What's the takeaway from this devastating picture of accelerated aging in one of the most remote places on Earth? It means that aging isn't just about genetics or the passage of time. It's about the environment you live in, the food you eat, the stress you endure, the care you receive, the toxins you're exposed to, and the social structures that either support you or fail you. The people of Greenland are a stark reminder that when all of these factors align in the worst possible way, the human body pays the price in years stolen and lives cut short. But here's the thing that should give us all pause. Greenland isn't some isolated anomaly, some strange exception that doesn't apply to the rest of us. The forces that are aging people faster there. Processed foods replacing traditional diets. Mental health crises born from trauma and isolation. Environmental toxins accumulating in our bodies. Inadequate healthcare systems. Substance abuse as a response to pain. These are threats that exist everywhere in the modern world. They're just concentrated and amplified in Greenland in a way that makes the consequences impossible to ignore. What's happening there is a warning sign for the rest of us. A glimpse. And progress has been frustratingly slow. Changing dietary patterns requires not just education, but making healthy traditional foods accessible and affordable. Addressing mental health requires building trust, training providers, and creating culturally appropriate services in communities that have been traumatized by outside interventions. Reducing environmental toxins requires global cooperation to limit pollutants at their source, thousands of miles away from Greenland. But change is possible. We've seen communities in other parts of the Arctic successfully revive traditional practices, reduce suicide rates through culturally grounded prevention programs, and improve health outcomes through better nutrition and healthcare access. The question is whether we have the collective will to support these efforts, to learn from what's happening in Greenland, and to take action before more lives are lost and more years are stolen. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about aging, about health, about the invisible forces that shape our lives and determine how long we'll live and how well we'll live those years, then share it. Talk about it. Support organizations working to improve health and well-being in Arctic communities. Demand that governments address environmental pollution and healthcare inequities. Because the more we understand about places like Greenland, the more we can learn about protecting ourselves and demanding better for communities everywhere that are facing similar challenges, whether they're in the Arctic or in marginalized communities in our own countries. The clock is ticking faster for some people than others, and that's not just a tragedy, it's an injustice. It's a call to action, because every person deserves the chance to grow old gracefully, to see their grandchildren grow up, to live a full lifespan that isn't cut short by preventable causes. The people of Greenland are showing us what happens when we fail to protect that basic human right, and we owe it to them and to ourselves to do better.